Okay, so in this video, we're going to be looking at some options for the modeling process and sort of how to approach getting started. Okay, so the first thing that you want to think about, now that we kind of know a little bit about topology, is that you kind of have to analyze the object that you're interested in modeling. And to do that, the first step is to have a good reference image to work from. Now, I'm going to start by kind of doing a relatively straightforward, pretty simple object, and I've got a few reference images here that I just pulled randomly off of Google Image. And so let's just open those up really quick. So I'm going to try to model here a pawn, a chess pawn. And so one thing you'll notice is here, let's look at this first one here. And this is the image that we like. This is the perfect reference image for a pawn chess piece. And why do we like this? Well, let's analyze it in relation to some other images here. So let's pull up another chess pawn and another one. And the question is, why wouldn't we want to use something like this? Right? We wouldn't want to use something like this because it's not a complete image of maybe say if we wanted to model the pawn back here, it's not complete, right? We can't see the whole thing. If we wanted to use this one, it's lying on its side, and that's not useful. Plus, it's not a flat view, and neither this one nor this one are flat views, meaning that they're not really more orthographic, right? This, you can see a little bit of the top and a little bit of the side, and we want just the side, right? This is the perfect view because what we want to do when we use reference images is we want an image that is sort of just one perfect side angle or one perfect top angle, or a combination. I mean, we could have two views. We could have a top view and a side view, but they have to be perfect in terms that they have to be a flat angle like this one is, right? So when you're looking for reference images, this is a very important thing to be looking for because we're going to be loading up this object in Maya and using it to trace from. Okay, so let's do that then. So how do we do that in Maya? First thing we do is we want to start out with a new scene. So let's get a new scene going here, and we want to save our project right away. So before we start anything, it's always a good idea to save. And keep in mind, Maya crashes a lot. And so saving your file regularly is very important. So we're going to start that process right now. Now, you'll remember I have a project folder that's sitting on my desktop right now. And so presuming that I'm just in class, we want to make sure that we don't start anything without having this. So just to recap how I did that, File, Project Window, and you can see I've got a current project. I'll go new here, and I'll just title this Van der Heijden. And then our first project is the Trinket project, so I'll title this Trinket Project 1. And then I'll place this, I'll define my location as the desktop. And I'll choose the desktop here, hit select, and then hit accept. And then I need to tell Maya to look into that folder. So I go to File, and then set project, and that's going to point Maya. I have to bring up this window here, and there's my Trinket project. If I select the desktop, I double click on the Trinket project folder, and it takes me to the top level inside of that project folder, and then I hit set. And then now Maya is sort of linked to my project folder. I go to File, Save Scene As, and that's going to allow me to save this into that project folder, right? So I'm going to title this as Van der Heijden Trinket 1. And you'll notice that's inside of the scenes folder, inside of the project 1 project folder. And that's perfect. So we just hit save as, and now it's going to ask me if I want to continue. Yes. Now we're set to go, right? We've got a saved file. It's inside of our project folder. And just as a reminder, right, when we leave class at the end of the day today, if you've been working on this, then you'll drag this folder onto your thumb drive, right? And then you take the whole folder that has all those subfolders in it with you. And then when you come back to class, you take that folder out of your thumb drive, put it onto the desktop, and then set your project again. And you'll hear me harping on this over and over. Now, the reason we want to do that is we want to put our reference image into that project folder. So, right, this is Van der Heijden Trinket Project 1 folder. And I've got just these random images that I pulled from the Google image sitting on the desktop. I only need this one, but I'll just, for the hell of it, put all of these into my project folder. And I want to put them into this folder that says source images. And source images is where you'll put a lot of stuff. So if you have textures you're applying to things, images that appear in your scene, a lot of stuff goes into source images. So just take these, drag them into source images. And once they're there, now we can go back. And so I go back into Maya, and I want to create what is called an image plane. And this is where all of your reference images will live. So what we do is we go to Create and scroll down to Free Image Plane. And this box will appear in the middle of your scene. And you'll also notice in your outliner that you get this thing that says Image Plane. You'll also notice that if your attribute editor is open, that you'll get a window in your attribute editor that will open up. And this looks rather intimidating, but we're only going to be using one function of this, and that is image name. So if we go in our attribute editor and we click on this little folder here, and again, if your attribute editor isn't open, just click on the little bullet pointy thing here, and it will open up. Make sure that your image plane is selected. Go to the folder, and then that will bring up this window. And you'll see that Maya looks right into that source images folder for the free image plane. And then we can select our pawn and hit open. And there we go. Now our pawn is inside of our scene. And we can move it around the way that we would any object. So this is great. So the first thing we want to do is, and again, a lot of this stuff seems like we're going about this incredibly slowly. And that's normal. So don't worry too much about that. So let's click on this and let's go to our channel box because we want to put this into a layer. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to my quad view here, or my 4 views, and let's go to the front so that we can see this. And I want to put the bottom of this right on what is known as the ground plane, or the 0 plane. So if I pull this up, I can stop that right there. And once that's in the center of my scene, I'm going to kind of keep it there, and we're going to sort of lock it in place by putting it into a layer. And also by putting it into a layer, we'll be able to turn its visibility on and off at will. So making sure that my image plane is selected and my channel box is open, I go to the bottom of the channel box here and I add it to a new layer. And by clicking on that button on the right. Then I'll name this layer by double clicking on the layer. I'll name this image plane. And then hit save. And now what I can do if I need to is I can click the V to make it invisible, which you're going to want to do occasionally. But the first thing I want to do is, let's go back to our perspective view, is I'm going to slide this back a little bit in space, maybe to the edge of the work area. And then I'm going to click once and then twice on this button here to make this say the letter R. And when it does that, I won't be able to click on it. So it's just going to hang out where it is, and it's going to be kind of there for reference. So the next question, and let's bring our front view back up here, is what do I use? What do I start with when I make this object, right? Now there's a couple of approaches that we could take here, and there's a lot to think about. But essentially we want to come back to the question of topology. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video.